Good morning. Happy Thursday.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome
So,
to our Thursday morning chat. Every Thursday, you'll catch us here live chatting about what's going on in our world and all things planning and parenting. I am Natasha,
I am Allegra.
and together we are Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, or BYWD. And yeah, you'll get us here every Thursday wherever you catch us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Did
All
I
the
say
places.
I did. All the places. Plus, we also put this out as a podcast as well. So you can catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts. At Beyond, the name of our podcast is Harness the Power of Planning. And we'll see you there too. So you can always listen to this too. I am a podcast junkie. I love to listen to things. I love to listen to audiobooks. I am a podcast junkie. So maybe
Yes.
you are too. And hello. We
Hello.
are in a countdown.
Oh my gosh. Like 3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2, 1, first day of
Countdown.
school. And I have so many friends whose kids go back to school on the East Coast after Labor Day.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1 done. 3, 2, 1.
Sorry, for any of you listening to the podcast, I'm holding up our bouquet of books and our best-selling book, 3, 2, 1 done. 3 simple strategies to get your to-do list done. So of course, when we said 3, 2, 1, I was like 3, 2, 1.
Blast up. 3, 2, 1 done. That would be so great if it was just done, right?
Yes.
How is your kiddo doing? Last we spoke, we talked about just getting our kids prepped for this coming first day of school. It still feels weird about it not happening so before Labor Day. And I have friends who are just kind of like, I still have a month off from school, but they can't wrap their brain around that we're going back to school on Monday.
And I know some people who went back to school last week.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
This is their second week of school already. So yeah, everyone's all over the place. And I do want to say one quick thing in terms of back to school. And actually, well, I was going to say one thing about Harness the Power of Planning. I just want, if you're new to us, the reason why our podcast is called Harness the Power of Planning versus Beyond Your Wildest Dreams is because we believe you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams when you harness the power of planning.
Power of planning. Yeah, 100%.
So the name of our business is all about what you can have, and the name of our podcast is all about how you're going to get there. And yes, Natasha and I love listening to podcasts, and the podcast goes out every Thursday on Spotify and then everywhere else about 24 hours later. So if you like to listen at other places, look for it on Fridays. That's when the new version, the newest episode will be up for you. And yeah, so my little did 2 summer bridge classes, which were so fantastic.
Awesome.
And yeah, if you don't know what a summer bridge class is, it's something that happens during the summer, and usually it's to bridge the knowledge between the new grades, so first grade and second grade, or second grade and third grade, to keep them fresh with the learning that they just completed, and also sort of gear them up for what they're going to be seeing.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because summer brain drain is a real thing.
Yeah, summer for sure. It is definitely documented. It has been researched. Like, kids lose, I forget the percentage, but it's legitimate.
Well, and Natasha always talk about in our course, also called Harness the Power of Planning.
Power planning.
We talk about the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, which is a study that was done a long time ago, and that research showed that you will forget 80% of what you learned within, was it 20 minutes or an hour? It's a short period of time.
So soon. Yeah.
So yeah, remember when we were in our those lecture halls, and then we walked out, and an hour later we were like, wait, what was
I don't know the name. I don't even know the name of the classes that I took. You know what I mean? Like you could, yeah, if you showed me my syllabus, I would have been like, sure, if you say so. Right. Mm-hmm.
And look, like many studies, this one wasn't perfect, because the thing that Ebbinghaus would have you do is memorize a list of words, random words. And the human brain doesn't necessarily work great at memorizing random stuff, which is why stories are so powerful, because it's not random. It has a flow. It makes sense.
Yeah, and there's an emotional connection, right? So like whenever I sing a song, because in my other world I'm a singer, whenever I sing a song where it's like kind of like it, where it doesn't make sense, or it's not that it doesn't make sense, but it's more random, it's so much harder to remember
Yes.
words than a song. It doesn't have to have a literal story, but has like an arc, right? And
Right.
it's a beginning, middle, and end, and you feel like you're telling a story as a singer, you know. And so,
Absolutely.
I mean, I have to sing the national anthem today. I sing it
Oh,
a lot, and I sing it a lot, so I now know it. I have it, but because it is poetry, it doesn't feel like, it's just a description. It's not, of what's going on, of what this, what the poet was seeing at the time. It just, like, I swear to God, even though I know this song inside and out, I get halfway through and I always think, was that the right word? Did I sing this line? Like every single time, even though I literally, I could sing it in my sleep, but yeah, every single time. So having you memorize random words, not really fair, but go on.
Yes, yes. And so, however, I think we can all agree that the finding that you tend to not remember things if you don't, write them down, start using them right
Mhm.
away, re-listen to that thing. We all know that there is truth in that basic fact. So, it is helpful to review what your kiddo just finished with school, because if they leave school and then they're just like, beach, pool, slumber party, beach, pool, slumber party, park, camp, they might say to you, wait, how do I factor that
Yeah.
equation
Yeah, totally.
when
Yep.
school comes around? So she did this great summer bridge class, and it was a math class, and that was great. And it introduced her to her teacher earlier than the first day of school.
Hmm.
And it gave her the opportunity to meet some other students, because this is a completely new school to her. So she doesn't have any friends, as far as she knows, going into it. And she
Right.
might turn up there and say, oh my gosh, I played volleyball with that person, or I sang choir with that person.
Yes.
But as far as
Right.
she knows, she doesn't have any people that she already knew going in. So,
Yeah. It's such a great
and,
opportunity if your kid's going to a new campus, if they're switching
yeah.
schools. In this case, I have a kid going to middle school and high school for the first time. And it's just,
Hmm.
even just to have the familiarity with the campus is that much less stressful on that first day for
Right.
a new high schooler and freshman.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, it reduces anxiety. I mean, we can all attest to that. When you are flying into a new airport that you've never been to and you have to find your connection, I am definitely more anxious than when I'm flying into my home airport that I've been to a million times.
How do people fly without apps before? Like, because I will look on the map, like it tells you, it has a map, like this is where you're landing, this is where your connection is, and I'm like, and I study
You're
it
such a
beforehand.
planner. I love it.
I do love maps though too. Like I'm a huge fan of maps. It's kind of weird. I think there are people who like maps. I love maps. I love knowing where I'm going, and being able to figure out,
So you
sometimes.
must hate it. You must hate it when your gate is not assigned.
um yeah, well, it's helpful, and when it is assigned, um it's a little more helpful, if I have this is mostly when I know my connection's going to be tight. If I know it's going to
Mhm.
be 2-3 hours, I'm not necessarily catching it beforehand. But if it's a tight connection, like, I absolutely like to look at the map, because am I catching a tram? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes these airports are like, you have to get on 3 buses
Oh,
to get to the next terminal. You know what I mean?
oh
So
my gosh, we barely made our connection last year. By the way, I want to say one thing, which is that usually we have chit chat at the top of the show and then we go into our topic. However, because our topic of getting back to school is so overwhelming, it's kind of bleeding into our chit chat. So
for sure,
we'll be talking about it throughout. But
it's all
yeah,
over.
last year we were coming back from abroad and we had a layover connection in the DC area. Actually, we bumped into your husband.
You bumped into my husband. You're like, boy, that looks like
That
Jeremy.
was
That's weird.
so weird. He was
So
coming back from Vermont?
yeah,
Okay, so we're coming back from Portugal. He's coming back from Vermont. We bump into him in Washington, D.C. However, our flight was super late. And so we were supposed to have a 3-hour connection, 4-hour connection, which is enough time to go through customs. You have to
right.
collect your baggage. You have to recheck your
Yeah. You were
baggage
coming from out of the country. Yeah.
out of the country.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we got there. And so our flight took off really late, 2.5 hours late, 3 hours late, something crazy. And so we had basically an hour. We saw the line for,
Custom?
the customs passport
yeah.
control.
Yeah.
And then I had seen a sign that said, do you want to sign up for an account? I forget what it's called. I have to look it up, but it's digital
here?
passport control.
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
what?
Yeah. I've seen I haven't signed up for that, but yes, I've seen the sign for that.
Digital passport control. So I said, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
And so while we're in this crazy line that was maybe 300 people long, I get on my phone and start do. Less than 5 minutes later, I said, we can get into that line over there. And my husband was like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, I just signed us up. We can go to that line over there. That line over there, the digital passport control, 3 people.
Oh,
3 people. And the line for the people, the people who pay to get whatever.
yeah. TSA pre-check. There's international TSA pre-check, and then there's regular, national, or excuse me, domestic. Yeah.
That line had about 20 people.
Wow. So what's the deal? Okay, I actually don't know. I thought you were talking about the international pre-check, TSA pre-check.
No.
You pay for ahead of time.
It's free. It's free, and I did it in line right there.
Well, I need to get on that. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not going out of the country anytime soon, but man, that's great. Because
now you do have to check to make sure your your airport takes it. So Washington, D.C.'s airport accepts the digital passport thing, but we flew through the line.
Amazing. And you made your
and then thank God we only packed backpacks on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have to grab luggage. And then we hoofed it a solid 25 minutes, full speed ahead, carrying our backpacks. We got to our gate with 10 minutes to spare.
Oh my goodness.
And sweat dripping down my back.
So you got some good zone minutes that day, girl.
Yes, our zone minutes was super impressive. And it was a longer walk. It was interesting because it was about a mile and a half or a mile and a quarter. It was over a mile. It was
serious airport walk.
Serious airport walk.
There were some people movers in there for you just to kind of speed things along.
I do not recall any people movers.
You're like, I am the people mover.
Yes.
I'm my person.
Yes, exactly.
You guys made that connection. You hooked up with my husband, which was so funny, so random. But so travel is a whole nother animal. And by the way, pro tip, listen, y'all, spend the $85 to get the TSA pre-check for domestic flights. It's good for 5 years. It is literally the best $85 you will spend, even if you only fly once a year, to not have to deal with, at least we live in a hub where there are big security lines. If you live somewhere that's not a big deal, holy moly, I can't tell you how many times that has saved my sanity. Having that TSA pre-check, domestic, $85, and if you renew, it's like $65. It's so worth it. Every time we get on that line, I'm like, yay!
Especially with kiddos, right? It's a whole
because you can have up to 2 kids under the age of 13 on your TSA pre-check with you. That's free, so they don't need their own special separate TSA pre-check. And it is
one of yours is going to need their own now.
He is, yes. Or it's like a special separate. It's not quite, he doesn't need a separate one until he's 15, but he can't be on anyway, we almost had a problem last time because he was on a separate ticket. It all worked out. Anyway, school.
Yeah, so Summer Bridge was great.
Yeah,
Summer Bridge was great.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that don't assume that you're going to be told about Summer Bridge, because we were told about the math Summer Bridge, but then there was a sort of soft skills Summer Bridge that was offered that we weren't emailed about. And I had seen the sign because I was dropping her off for the math Summer Bridge. And I said, can I sign? Is there a reason why we weren't notified? Is it's not for her age? And they said, no problem. Sign up for that Summer Bridge. And that Summer Bridge was all kind of like study skills and get up early and why it's important to eat healthy. Yeah.
Because we've talked about this before. My kid needs somebody else, another source to tell them things like, hey, go to bed early so you can have enough sleep to get up. The obvious things that as parents we're like, eat your vegetables, whatever you need. My kid needs YouTube verification or this. I wish that we had a soft skills class or Summer Bridge for my son. That would have been very helpful. he's super resisting any kind of calendaring right
Mm.
now. Yeah, he's like super against it because I'm saying to him, I
Because
want
you're super for it.
right. I was like, I want you to start managing your own. He has like guitar lessons. It's not like I'm like, I want you to manage it. I want the teacher to be texting you. I want you to be the one who's like, oh yes, I can move that to such and such. And I want you to do, you know, like you have access to our family calendar. I want you to start taking that over because I have students who are the same age as him who do that. And I was like, this is something. I'm like, we are not going to do that learned helplessness thing. I'm like, mommy's not going to be
Right.
for you all the time. So I've said, I want you to take it over. You're a freshman in high school. It's time for you to take it over. He is like, oh, I can't. I don't know how to access it. Blah, blah. I'm like, we can do this. We can figure this out. Anyway, so yes, because I want it to happen. Anyway.
Well, and sometimes they have to feel the consequences. For instance, my little didn't keep track of her stuff it bag for her sleeping bag when she went somewhere recently. So she had to pay for it to be replaced. And she knows if she breaks her glasses, the copayment for that's going to be coming out of her money, not mine.
Absolutely. And so I want to help him figure out the tech side of like being able to access it. And then you know that's available and he can access it easily because he doesn't have a smartphone. But I want him to be able to access it online, and we're trying to figure out a way for him to access it on his watch. That's the part that
okay.
So, yeah. So once he's got that down, I will be doing that same thing. If you mess up, if you miss the lesson, you get charged for it, right? So
yes.
he will get charged. Like we pay for the lessons, but if you miss it because of you, that money is coming back to me.
Absolutely. That gotta hit him where it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think it's just, you know, natural consequences, right? Because
absolutely
in the real world, that's what would be happening. If I miss an appointment, I have to pay for it. If it's my fault. So how has the sleeping been going? Because I know that you guys had a little bit more of a long game, you know, sleeping, waking up situation. We've all been trying to implement it this week. I've been asked for 2 sleepovers in the last week. I was like, no, dude, no sleepovers. I was like, tomorrow is a quote unquote school day. He's like, no, it's not. I'm like, well, we're pretending like it is because I promise we'll go to sleep. I'm like, no, you won't. I'm like, oh, you guys are going to be like, night, 10 o'clock. Like,
right.
No, I mean, no, that's not happening. Anyway,
so do I look like I was born yesterday, kid?
I mean, it's just so funny because we explained to them because we were on a camping trip the weekend before. And we said, okay, when we get back home, we're just going to pretend like this is school week. You're going to be going to bed, lights out, blah, 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 all this stuff, you know? And then we did it that night that we came back from camping. And then the next day they were like, can we just sleep over? I was like, that wasn't a one night thing. We're doing this whole week going into it. And they were just like, what? Anyway, they now have dropped in that, no sleepovers. Even though, again, we were asked again last night. I was like, no, dude, no.
Yeah, we had to ease into it because since my daughter's been homeschooled her whole life, she's basically gotten up when she's wanted to, which the brain science supported. So I felt good about letting her sleep in. And she would get up around 8:39. And so now she has to be at school at 7:30. And so that's a big change because that requires her getting up, 6:15. So I kind of eased into it with the summer bridges because the first summer bridge started at 8:30. So she had to get a little bit earlier for that. And then she had a week off. And then the next summer bridge she had to be there by 8. So she got up a little bit earlier. And then this week I said, you're getting up at 6:15 and that's what we're going to do. And of course there was some pushback. I said, look, do you really want your first day of school to be the first day that you ever get up at 6:15?
Yeah, no, that'll be rough.
Yeah. I'm like, that's going to be hard on you. I said, this is going to make it easier. This is going to prepare your body because you're going to be more tired at night because you're not used to getting up this early. So you're going to sleep and then, your body will adjust to the new schedule. And I have to say she's been fantastic this week. It hasn't always been pop out of bed, but she has gotten up, and we had an appointment, which is the time that we had to walk out the door. We have to walk out the door for school. So 6:50 at 6:50.
Yeah.
We've walked out the door with our dog. So that was our appointment.
Awesome. That's great. That's fantastic.
And I did say to her,
that level yet. We're still just trying to work on the back end. The lights out end. It's not happening exactly when I'd like for it to be happening. The morning part, we get to start doing that tomorrow, I guess. Yeah, because it's definitely going to be earlier. Not as early as 6:15, but 10 to 7, which is about 10, 15 minutes earlier than we had to last school year. So it's definitely a change. And even though it's 10 to 15 minutes earlier than that, they would push it too. It would stay in a little later. Having to ask like 8 times to get up,
yes.
No more of
well,
that.
and the great thing too about the summer bridge was they emphasized you need to be butts in seat
right
at 7:30.
Right. Yeah.
Not stepping foot on campus.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Not walking through the gate at 8 o'clock or whatever time. My one son starts at 8:30. The other one starts at 8 a.m. And it's not walking through the gate at that time. It's butts in seats at that time. Yeah, totally. So
in terms of our topic of creating a checklist, Natasha and I are big fans of preparing the night before, because so we will always say plan the night before, we'll say plan the week before, because studies show that when you do a little bit of planning the night before, it reduces your anxiety the next day because you know what to expect. You've already primed your brain to say, okay, here's what's happening. Now, one of the tips that we talk about in Rock Your Morning is actually how to create an evening ritual so that your morning is just that much easier. For those of you listening to the podcast, I'm holding up our book, Rock Your Morning. And I forget that I have to explain what I'm doing when I'm just waving this thing around in the air. So one thing that we say in Rock Your Morning is if you have somewhere to be, pack up as much stuff as you can and put it by the door or put it in your car so that it's one less thing to think about. When Natasha and I have to do a presentation somewhere, the easel, the whiteboard, the whiteboard erasers,
the sign-up sheets, the book displays, everything you possibly can think of that doesn't need to be refrigerated or whatever the night before. I mean,
the pop-up tent, the chairs, the table. We recently did an event.
So sometimes I'll just collect that by the door, right? So that's cool. That works well too. But even that time of having to then collect that and put that in the car in the morning, for me especially, takes longer than I think it does. I just know that even I'm like, oh, that'll take 5 minutes. And, maybe in theory it could, but oh yes, it does take 5 minutes, but oh my goodness, I forgot this one little thing, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, you're scrambling. Whereas if I had done it the night before and I'd put it in, I would have realized the night before that I forgot the one little thing. Right. So it just helps. I mean, and it is a thing that I have to constantly remind myself because my brain will talk me out of doing things the night before. My brain will talk me into, oh, you can just do it in the morning. Oh, it'll be easier. And so for me, starting the habit of making sure the lunches are done the night before is something that I've done intermittently in the past. And it makes our mornings 10 times smoother when I do it the night before,
Well, so to that end, my daughter has a monthly habit tracker and we renewed it for August with school in mind. And so she has her morning stuff that she has to do and then the evening stuff. And so the morning stuff is make bed, which is a habit of hers. She really doesn't have to track it, but I just thought it would be helpful to just have it on there.
Absolutely.
Get dressed, water plants, pick up the dog poop, draw a comic, because that's a practice of hers. And then she has the evening stuff, like when she's back from school, start laundry, 5:30 p.m., start homework, check the school calendar to see if she likes what's going to be offered for lunch the next day. Because if she doesn't like what's going to be offered for lunch, then the next thing is pack a lunch. And then 7:30 p.m., get ready for bed, brush our dog's teeth, lay out your clothes for the next day. So that's her little thing.
Right.
You can see she's been using it for this last week, checking it off. For those of you on the podcast, she's been checking it off. So you can, this week. So you can
And
see
we do it as a weekly tracker. Just because I just laminate it and we just do it that way because it's kind of I love how like this is you got a habit tracker. This is more of like a checklist / habit tracker, meaning just like checklist. Like I do on my morning part of it, I have things in there like put your like lunchbox and water bottle in the book bag, just because I don't want to have to repeat that over and over again. And like that might be something that your daughter already just remembers to do. It's not remembered in this house at all to just even though my kids are normally very good about taking their dishes and cleaning them and putting them in the dishwasher, in the morning when it's a little bit more chaotic, I can't tell you how often bowls have been left on the table. So that's checklist too. And I think we talked about this last week. It's just like I want to minimize the amount of time of nagging that happens because it's not fun for me and it's not fun for them. And so it's just like, oh, I check the checklist. Oh yeah, clean up breakfast is on there too. Even though that might be something that is often a habit, especially at the beginning stages, like right now when school is starting again and things have been a little more loosey-goosey in the summer, you know what I mean? Like maybe if you leave your bowl on the table for a little while, no big deal, and you'll do it later or something. In the morning before school, we want to make sure that those things are happening. So that's on my checklist too. Like, breakfast / clean up breakfast, that kind of thing. And, my kids are both kids who they'll come downstairs and I'll have to say, do you have your shoes on still at the age of 11 and 13? Not just, it's the way that their brain works. It just, the next obvious thing isn't always obvious. So I got to put some obvious things on there. Yeah. But kudos to your daughter for brushing the dog's teeth every night. Holy moly. That is not happening in this house.
Well, and it makes sense for her too, because she's interested in working with animals.
Yes.
So part of the discussion when we decided to adopt a dog was I'm not going to be the primary caregiver.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So she has to do that. And she's actually started caring for some other people's animals. She has 2 clients.
Oh, what? How cool is that?
It's been great too, because since they pay her, it gives us an opportunity to, she has a money pouch. This will have to be a whole nother podcast topic, but she has a money pouch where she tracks things because, digital money just doesn't feel as real. So I like the opportunity. I know you use the green card, which I would love to talk about. We're going to have to do a money episode, y'all.
Yeah, for
money
sure.
episode for sure. But I love the fact that they pay her cash. It allows us to deal with.
Yes, we've been, Well, before we did green card, we did jars. And I think that concept, we've been doing that since they were really, really little, because it's really easy. You got jars, it's clear, it has the words on it, save, spent, and so they've been doing that for years. And we just kind of transferred that concept into the digital world because quite honestly, my husband and I we just don't have cash on us very often. It's just kind of easier. And then they just have that card on them. And it's much easier when they don't lose cash too.
Yes.
They take their card. So
we'll save that for another podcast. That's a whole episode.
Podcast,
yeah. But here's the checklist that we created. This is kind of her night before checklist. And it's backwards for those of you looking at the screen. So I'll just read it off to you. So obviously the backpack.
Yeah.
That might seem obvious, but sometimes when you forget the obvious things.
But she's new to this whole
it's true.
outside of school thing too. So it's not.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then notebooks to take notes in, folders to collect the papers that she will be passed out, I'm sure. PE clothes, because she does have to change into a PE uniform. And then a washcloth so she can refresh herself after she's played PE. And a wet bag, which is just a plastic bag, to put her stinky clothes and washcloth in to bring it home. And then face wash, mineral SPF, and deodorant to reapply because she will have washed her face and all of that.
Yeah.
And then because she has braces, toothbrush and toothpaste for after meals. And then finally a padlock for her locker, which at Natasha's wonderful direction, she has been practicing this week.
Oh, good.
And honestly, I think this might be the padlock I used in high school.
No way. So you still have
I think it might be. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's so crazy. That's hilarious. Well, it works, right?
It works.
So
it works.
Is this for the first day of school list? Is that what you're saying?
First day of school list.
Gotcha. Right. Because I was like, obviously
she might have a locker with a built-in lock. We're not sure.
Yes. Right. So I know my son, when his orientation, they gave him his locker combination and his locker number, and yeah, so he's gonna be that has a built-in one, but his PE locker, he has to bring his own lock. So yeah, every school's a little bit different. You might get all that information hopefully before the first day of school, sometimes not. First day of school sometimes, but at the very least she understands how a padlock works because they all work the same.
Exactly, they all work the same.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and then finally, the last thing that is circled and starred is good attitude, because you need to remember to pack your good attitude.
You know what? I've been so focused on like how our how our ongoing checklist tracker is going to be, on a weekly basis long term, that I hadn't really thought too much about just what, how the first day of school is a different list than the rest of the school year. And so that's great. I'm gonna take your example and run with that. I'm gonna make one for each of the boys. It's a little bit different. My son does have orientation tomorrow, the middle schooler, so he is going to get to go to his locker, and they said bring cleaning products to clean it and all this other kind of stuff. So he'll actually get to kind of like put stuff in his locker tomorrow and kind of like get it set up or whatever.
Yes.
So that's fun.
Yeah, because she can leave a lot of the stuff there.
Yes.
Right. Once she's done.
Right.
And for those of you wondering where books might be on this list, where we go to school, at least, kids have a set of books at home and they have a set of in-class books. And apparently the books do not go back and forth.
Right. They probably learned that's how they get lost and damaged, right? So
that was like, what?
Yeah.
I thought it was a rite of passage carrying 40 pounds of books in your backpack.
Yeah. And so much is digital too. Like my sons I don't think my elementary school student had any textbooks. Everything was digital for him. So now this year he will be getting some books, and my high schooler will be carrying them back and forth, which is a whole nother level of like, oh, I had science homework tonight. I forgot my textbook, right? Excuse me. So I was explaining to him, like, not only do you have to write down what your assignment is, or your assignment shows up on Schoology, but you have to remember to bring that specific textbook home if you wind up having it. Now, also, luckily, a lot of these textbooks are digitally available too. If you do forget them, there is a way to find those pages and stuff digitally, but it is a little bit of a pain in the butt, and also a lot of times they're in such weird formats. It's like kind of, it's not super user friendly. Anyway, that's a whole nother new skill for him too, is that remembering to bring home textbooks that he's going to need for homework, and leaving the other ones behind. Yeah, it's going to be new for him too.
Yeah.
His middle school didn't use lockers at all. So this is new for him too, except for gym. They had a gym locker, but yeah, it's going to be new.
What's been new for me is the amount of communication I've been getting. My husband and I are both like, dang, our phones are getting blown up.
And wait, yeah. And I feel like when the school year starts, it's a little bit less. Like they have like a day that they send out, like on a Thursday, whatever your school is, your school will have like a communication day, right? Well, you'll get it on like Sunday night, like this week, blah, blah, blah. So it'll kind of die down a little bit, but the district also sends a lot of stuff.
They send a lot of stuff, and I got something in the mail today, or not today. I guess it was last week, but it is a 4-page, right, back, front and back. And this is the size of the font.
No. No, thank you.
I was like, is that even 6 point? I'm not sure. Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. So lots of communication.
I do want to mention one thing because I'm not sure if you said it on her evening checklist. You want to make sure that she plugs in her device that's a one. Make sure that that's because you want to charge device when you get to school. That's
Right.
making sure that her Chromebook is fully charged and stuff so it'll last the whole day. And that is something that I used to get a lot of text messages from the teachers saying, hey, parents, make sure your kid's device is fully charged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's one of the things on our evening checklist that needs to happen. For sure.
Well, and if you would like to see these lists that we've been holding up and talking about, I will include pictures of them in our email that will go out next week. And you can sign up for that email at bywdreams.com. And yeah, make your own. Of course, your list is going to be different, but sometimes it's nice to have a jumping off point. And we will give you that springboard. I was watching Olympic diving the other day, so that's in my mind now.
Yes. All right. We'll see you back here Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We're happy to chat with you. Please jump in the comments. Let us know what have we forgotten that we should put on our list. Morning tracker, evening tracker. What do you do to keep your mornings nice and smooth? What are things that you do before the first day of school? Are there any traditions you do with your family before the first day of school or after the first day of school? We'd love to hear all about that kind of stuff.
Dream wild, wild dreamers.